The big questions that are coming up today, I think, are focusing. Trying to figure out what of the multitude of billions of possible tests that we could run that we should focus on to add value to our community, to our project, to our teams. I think that's a big one. Yeah, first I want to make clear that when people call me in to help them, they're usually totally screwed up. So I don't really represent the state of the world, right? Most people have clean projects that work perfectly with good requirements and the whole thing. The projects I help our people on are the ones where they're mucked up and they sort of know they're mucked up. And I try to help them, how can I put it, ease the pain, right? So the typical things that I would do, for example, is really take a look at how they're either developing software. I think testing is just part of software engineering. It's not something that you do sort of by itself. It's built into your lifecycle model. And I do a serious analysis. I go in there, take a look with them, look under the hood, try not to be intrusive, right? Try to identify some baby steps, some things that they're doing, like are they wasting their life documenting testing? Why are they documenting it when they should be actually testing? And are they limiting themselves? And the type of things that I'm seeing are people who are sort of totally tied up with some weird paradigms of filling in what we'd call templates, right? There's a template junkies out there. They're filling out templates, and they're not actually testing. This frustrates testers, but their stakeholders seem to want paperwork. And how do you sort of get away from the stakeholders wanting paperwork into the testers adding value? And so you've got to go in there and muck in that and sort of find out what to shred and what not to shred, and how to convince the stakeholders that they shouldn't be asking testers for documentation, but they should be asking testers for valuable information. And so I want to turn a little bit of testing from something that generates scripted tests and things like that to something that we're professionals. We sort of discover things, we learn, we come up with findings, and then those findings help people make good business decisions about when to release software or not to release software or what to do next. It's a glorious thing. It's just creating so much chaos that it's great for business. A lot of people love some of the promise of moving to lifecycle models that have more agility, right? Most of my customers, it's Scrum. We're looking at helping them with Scrum, and the notion of short iterations where we deliver value is just, it's awesome. And it helps so much because, frankly, people are living in turbulent contexts. You have a blend. Business turbulence, organizational turbulence, technological turbulence, all of this is changed continuously. And what we have with a model like Scrum, and I'm not going to say that's the only model, is we can start saying, okay, for a short chunk of time, let's focus on one context. Let's deliver value in this way. And so that at the end of the iteration or sprint or whatever you want to call it, we're giving people working code. We're giving them value of some sort. The testers, though, their role changes dramatically in this context. And they're being, I guess, encouraged or sort of, don't be an independent team, be a collaborator with developers. And now you've got to start talking the language of developers. And developers, unfortunately, also have a lot of learning to do here. Just because you can code Java doesn't mean that you can design tests. Test design is about focusing. Software design is about decomposition. There's a huge difference. The tester goes and sees all of the possible test cases. And I like to say there's more possible tests for even the simplest application than there are particles of matter in the universe. And I know I had a long flight to Star. I counted. It's true. And so what does the tester have to do? They have to design a way to test that takes all of these possibilities and focuses it on the small subset that adds incredible value to the project. What the developers do, on the other hand, is they try to take the stories and turn them into reality and decompose them so that they can do, just a reasonable amount of code to get the functionality that adds value to the stakeholders. These two paradigms are intersecting now. And I think it's an exciting time to be a tester because of this. But there's the inertia, right? There's the old way. And basically throwing those things out is very, very difficult, and it's a lot of pain points for the people that I'm working with. Baby steps, what can I say? And finding them, I've never seen two customers that have the same path. And I'm lucky that the customers call me back and help with interventions every little while. But sometimes also I've seen things go totally foul because people try to keep old testing ideas in new contexts. For example, one of my customers managed 2 different bug lists. And I'm trying to tell them, you don't need any bug list. Fix the bugs when you find them. What are you doing documenting it? And they went and they sort of bought this agile tool, quote unquote, and they used it and it reported bugs really nicely. But then they went and every bug they had, they reported it again in their system testing tool. And what are you doing? Why is this going on? And it's like this inertia because they think it's part of their job. So to twist that, what I try to do is I try to get testers to change what they think their job is. Because I don't think testing is, first of all, just a job. I think it's a profession. How do you know you're finished? This is the fundamental question of all software engineering. Every single aspect of software engineering is about how do you know you're finished. Okay, so keep in mind, more possible tests than particles of matter, right? It's an infinite and intractable problem. We have goals, we have things we try to achieve. What I try to get people to do is set up a method where you're continually triaging 3 things in your project. The requirement, what's the goals, what are the stories we're going to be delivering? Right? We're triaging, I'm using the term from medical triage. We want to triage the bugs, the problems we find. Which ones do we fix, which ones do we not fix? And then the last one, and probably the most important one, is how do we triage our test ideas? And I want people to continually come up with these new ideas, but know how we're going to decide what to test and not to test purposefully. So set up a workflow, no matter what your lifecycle model is, so that you're constantly watching these things. Get the core values in line, and encourage testers while they're testing to continuously come up with new ideas. Not just bugs, not just reports, but really, really new testing ideas. Then you're triaging them based on some sort of a decision-making model you've set up beforehand. And I believe that is the way to tackle the question, how do you know you're finished? Because we could keep testing forever, so it's always an economic activity. So I think that a lot more should be spent on emphasizing how we decide what not to test from a rich pool of testing opportunities. What not to test, as opposed to focusing on what we should test. Well, the one tip I always like to, I alluded to this before, but the one tip I would give is that when you are testing, always be on the lookout for new testing ideas. The best testing ideas come as you're testing. Not at the beginning of the iteration when you're doing the analysis, but as you're actually in the code, looking at it, using it, and those new ideas could add a lot more value to your project than the ideas you thought up at the beginning. So constantly come up with new testing ideas and make it a part of what you do as a tester.